Death is nothing compared to vindication. Perhaps the coolest thing Konrad Curze, also known as Nighthaunter, ever said. Curze is a sadistic, hypocritical, irredeemable piece of but he is also simultaneously a cutie patootie and one of the most beloved Primarchs by the Warhammer community. His troubled personality derived mainly from his Primarch ability, the quote-unquote gift of foresight, that showed him brief visions of the future, mostly showing him the worst possible outcomes. These visions drove Nighthaunter quite mad from an early age, and have part of the blame for Curze joining the traitors during the Horus Heresy. But what would have happened if Curze had a therapist of sorts to air out his fears and frustrations, so he could conquer them before they conquered him? What would happen if Nighthaunter got the help he so desperately needed? Those of you who subscribe will probably have noticed that it's been a while since my last upload. I won't go into why this is, but rest assured I'm gonna try to make more videos moving forward. That being said, if you like this video and want to see more like it, I'd greatly appreciate it if you like and subscribe and leave a comment on future What If videos you would like to see. So without further ado, let's chew quickly through Konrad's early history, so we're all on the same page. Let's explore his... When the Primarchs were split up, Curze ended up on the second worst populated world in the galaxy. After planet Birmingham, he found himself on Nostromo, far east on the galactic fringe, within the area of the galaxy impolitely referred to as the Ghoul Stars. The little natural sunlight that hit the atmosphere of Nostromo was blocked from reaching the surface by thick layers of perpetual smog and clouds, keeping the vast majority of the planet's population in eternal darkness. The fortunate few who had the wealth to artificially illuminate their homes were the aristocracy of the world, who cared little for the squabbling of those they considered to be beneath them. For everyone else, life was hell. A society built on violence and extortion in all situations ensured that the working stiffs were kept in line and complacent enough to do what they were told. Those are my notes for my upcoming video on the US. Please ignore that. All the Primarchs were designed to have a strong sense of justice, and Curze was no exception. He could even be said to be a bit over-enthusiastic in his persecution of those he perceived to be immoral. If you're the type of person who thinks torturing criminals to death and removing their skin is just a bit excessive, Curze became the Nighthaunter, a vigilante poised to end all crime on Nostromo, systematic or otherwise. Corrupt officials were found skinless, hanging from street lamps. Mob bosses disappeared, and murderers were themselves murdered. Before long, this frighteningly direct way of criminal persecution did actually result in the eradication of crime on the planet. Eventually, the Great Crusade reached Nostromo, and the Emperor descended to bring his son home. Upon meeting his father, Curze immediately had a vision directly showing his own death at the hands of his father's assassins, leading to a troubled relationship between the two from the very outset. After Curze was taken to Terra to be united with his legion, at the time only known as the 8th Legion, Nostromo fell back into old habits, and crime ran as rampant as it had ever before. Konrad's unwillingness to share his visions with his brothers, and mostly with his sons, led to his own legion adopting some of his more questionable ways. It didn't exactly help either that the first Marines of the Legion were taking directly from the worst of Terra's prison populations, and their sadism was only amplified by Curze's gene seed. These first Marines were called the Knight's Children, which kind of fits well with the name Curze later gave the Legion. During the Great Crusade, Curze and the now Night Lords employed questionable tactics in their pacifications. often brutalizing an entire population of humans just to make the rest comply with the imperial truth out of fear. This led to some tensions between Nighthunter and some of his brothers and their legions, particularly with Vulcan's Salamanders and the Imperial Fists. This, however, is where we leave the true timeline and branch off into the sea of endless possibilities. Who knows what we'll find out together? I know. I wrote this bit after the next couple of chapters. I actually came back here to warn you about... When he was newly discovered, Curze acted and was perceived very differently, much more similarly to how his brothers are perceived, noble and chivalrous. Still a bit fucked up, mind you, still a bit fucked up, but nobly so. He didn't speak much to his brothers, and they didn't talk much to him. Instead, he became something of a black sheep of the family. A family of black sheep. In this timeline, however, Sanguinius recognizes the signs in his brother that can also be seen in himself. Both could, as a matter of fact, see sporadic glimpses of the future. Their visions were different in presentations, but not in matter. Sanguinius comes clean to his Nostraman brother, telling him about his own visions, and Curze responds in kind, eventually even revealing to Sanguinius that he had seen a vision of his own death, ordered by their father. Sanguinius and Curze end up spending a lot of time together, with Sanguinius taking the role of some sort of therapist for his pale little brother. Obviously, their little social club couldn't be going on all the time. Both were called to service in the Great Crusade, sometimes together, sometimes apart. But through the time they have together, Sanguinius stresses the fact that the future is in constant flux, and nothing is set in stone before it actually happens. That Curze's visions are possible futures, not the only ones. The great irony is, of course, that Sanguinius himself only halfway believes this, but he does what he can to help his brother regardless. As the crusade proceeds, Curze's Night Lords still act like they normally do. They commit vicious atrocities on a small part of the population on worlds to make the rest comply with imperial rule out of fear. Nighthunter does see things somewhat differently here than in the true timeline, but he's still himself, just a slightly kinder version of himself. This pattern of noble yet terrible attitude is exemplified in this excerpt from the short story The Abyssal Edge. Please spare us your moral relativism, uncle. If your sons cannot keep from childish outbursts, brother, perhaps it's best if they leave us. We should. Silence! Pull your men back from the tower, Konrad. You think me too proud to compromise? I am not. Not over a matter so vital, for knowledge so crucial. Give me 2 weeks to comb the depths of this trove, to separate the truth from the harmful lies. I will destroy anything that bears the stain of deceit myself. Do not do this, Magnus pressed. Do not commit this law to flame. I will brook no compromise. I will give no ground. The library will burn. Brother. Magnus's voice was a strangled plea. Let me send word to our father first. Let his word be the judgment we seek. He would never wish this library destroyed, I promise you. And I will remain with you while we wait. Neither I nor my sons will enter the Tower of Serenity until the Emperor sends his blessing. How confident you are. I am, Magnus confessed, passing giving heart to his tone. I am, brother, for decades, even before my rediscovery and Prospero's welcome into the Imperium, I spoke with Father across the tides of the great ocean. Mind to mind, soul to soul. 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 You talk such pretty nonsense, brother. Spirits and tutelaries and great oceans and souls. Do you believe you are the only one to have spoken with Father?
that you alone knows his wishes and his secrets, and what he desires us to achieve out here. Tell me truly, Magnus, do you honestly think we are all nothing but fools, capering in your shadow?
The Crimson King's features hardened, as did his voice.
I speak of revelation and vision, and you speak petty words of bitterness? Brother, I'd hoped for so much more. Was your hunger to destroy not sated with the massacres you inflicted upon the people of this world? Massacres?
Curze murmured the words.
That you did not stop. Massacres that spared 90% of this world's population and reached compliance in half the time Gilliman had estimated. So do not object to my massacres, and do not speak the word as if it were some filthy sin.
Magnus would not be cowed.
The campaign was yours to prosecute as you saw fit, but this library, this lore... That word again. Lore. You clutch at it, investing it with preciousness, holding it out before you as a talisman. What will you do with this lore, Magnus? Take it back to Prospero, set it free for all to learn and know, believing you enrich their lives.
Magnus said nothing at first. He looked upon his brother, feeling the cold creep of unwelcome revelation.
Such hate, he said, almost in disbelief. Such depths of selfish hate.
Curze grunted beneath that gaze.
It isn't spite that binds me to this course of action,
the Night Lord's Primarch said softly.
The knowledge in that spire is the crown jewel of a corrupt culture. Their beliefs should be destroyed to aid compliance and prevent a backslide into heathenism. Obedience is what matters, Magnus. They will be taught to obey. Through obedience, they will become imperial.
No, Konrad. Sensing a chance for unity, Magnus matched his tone to his brother's. You may be right about the people of this world, but the knowledge they've accrued. Let me take you to the Emperor, that's all I ask.
I've already told you. I will brook no compromise. I will give no ground. Drop the Kine shield around the Tower of Serenity. For if your warriors seek to maintain the barrier once bombardment begins, well, I cannot promise they will remain unharmed.
You wouldn't, Magnus sighed. Even your murderous clan wouldn't open fire on their own brothers.
All you prove, Curze said, is how little you know me. Sevatar, give the order to open fire.
Magnus' remaining eye widened. He reached out a hand. Brother!
This is Sevatar.
The Night Lord spoke across the Vox network. Open fire on the tower. Bring it down. Brother! Magnus called. Then ceased. He tensed, wincing as he felt the impacts begin on the psychic shield his sons had raised around their treasure. Curze's claws retracted and deployed in the momentary silence.
When the Emperor came to my world, he brought light to Nostramo, a world that had never seen the sun. He brought the light of knowledge, Magnus. Suddenly, my people could see the wider galaxy around them. They could perceive other worlds and other cultures, city after city that didn't dwell in the endless dark. Civilizations of peace and laughter. That knowledge didn't free them, brother. It shackled them. It wrapped them in misery. Nostramo heaves with their sorrow. At the cost of their peace is fear and blackness. My people suffer in my absence. Law breaks down as they fight for their bindings. And why? Because of knowledge. Because of a well-meaning teacher bringing a perspective they weren't yet ready to know.
Magnus's features were tight with concentration. Even so, he shook his head. his voice breathy with realization.
You are a hateful, blind creature. The Emperor will hear of this.
Curze didn't gloat. He didn't even smile.
How long can you hold that barrier for, Magnus? Forever, if I wish it.
Now it was Magnus speaking through clenched teeth.
Forever and a day.
Curze still didn't smile. Though, did his eyes glint with a cold mirth? It seemed to at least one observer that they did.
And how long before your legionnaires begin to wear out from exhaustion? How long before accidents occur and all those detonating shells kill your sons on the ground? A day? A week? A month? I have the ammunition. Or I could pull my warriors back and open fire with the nightfall. How long would you keep your 1,000 sons on the surface then? This only ends one way, Magnus. My way. I would rather you stood with me and prevented bloodshed. Your men don't deserve to die for their misguided optimism.
Magnus nodded, the gesture one of acceptance, if not agreement.
I will remember this, Konrad. I promise you. I will remember this. Good, said Curze. Lessons should be remembered. That is why they are taught to us in the first place.
Ah. Now Magnus smiled. His regal features were a poor foundation for malice, but there was nothing warm in that smile.
A lesson, is it? Bold words from a man that just claimed ignorance was bliss.
Curze's jaw tightened. The most emotion he'd shown thus far.
I will hold fire for 30 minutes. Get your legion off the ground. The tower falls in half an hour.
Curze's strange sense of nobility mixed with terrible animosity towards pretty much everyone continued towards the end of the Great Crusade. We don't know how or when Curze pledged loyalty to the rogue war master in the true timeline, but instead of that happening here, he stays loyal to his father, though honestly mostly loyal towards his brother and, now, therapist, Sanguinius, at least for the time being. As he grew more and more dependent on Sanguinius to keep telling him that, despite divisions, he controls his own destiny, Curze's legion were deployed alongside the Blood Angels more and more often. This means that when the drop site massacre on Istvan 5 occurs, the Night Lords aren't present, but are off fighting demons in the Cygnus campaign, alongside the Blood Angels. As a result of this, we'd likely see more survivors in general from the 3 shattered legions, and Vulcan wouldn't have his lovely vacation as Konrad's guest, where he was tortured to death repeatedly, both physically and mentally, but otherwise, the massacre spans out pretty similarly to the true timeline, with Ferrus Manus still losing his metaphorical head, charging into the Emperor's children's lines, and then losing his not metaphorical head, as the greater demon of Khorne, Kambanda, is defeated on Cygnus Prime, and Curze's Night Lords learn of their cousin's Red Thirst. They make their way together to the only place they can, as the Ruin Storm blocks their passage to Terra. They make their way to After Lorgar and Angron had unleashed a terrible warp storm upon the galactic southeast, after the Wardbearers' betrayal at Calth, the Ultramarines were not sure just how widespread the treachery was. Shortly later, Lionel Johnson appeared out of the warp in the Macragge system and shed some more light upon the situation. At least 7 legions had taken up arms against the Imperium, 3 more had been massacred in the Istvan system, and the fates of 4 more were shrouded in mystery. Robute Gilliman, Primarch of the 13th Legionis Astartes Ultramarines, extrapolated a theoretical from the details supplied by his brother. The theoretical is as follows. The Emperor may be dead. Almost half of the Primarchs are confirmed to be pledged to the Renegade War Master.
Considerable forces from the Imperial Army and Martian Mechanicum have flocked to the traitor side. Of the remaining Primarchs, nothing is certain. Terra may have fallen. Not a comfortable theoretical at the best of times. He then constructed a practical. Create a second Imperium to hold the line against the traitors until the fate of the Emperor and Terra can be confirmed, regardless of outcome. This Imperium Secundus would need an Emperor, hopefully a temporary one that can be trusted to rule competently and then step down immediately if and when the Emperor is found to still be alive. Guilliman didn't want that for himself, so his thoughts went to the only other feasible alternative, the Lion. Though he looked up to Lionel Johnson, Guilliman did not look favorably on crowning him as Emperor either. No, he needed another candidate. Guilliman barely had time to reflect on this reality before an alarm sounding the arrival of a massive Legion fleet in the system interrupted him. To Robute's great horror, the fleet was that of Konrad Curze and his Night Lords. Yet again, Guilliman didn't really have time to reflect upon the new reality. Another Legion fleet was arriving in system. This time, a Vox call from none other than Sanguinius of the 9th Legion reached him, assuring the Avenging Sun that both fleets were loyal to the throne. I won't be going into the details of the political process that went into the making of Imperium Secundus. For that, you'll have to actually read the Unremembered Empire and the following books in the Horus Heresy series, but it's safe to assume that Guilliman's plan is realized, like in the true timeline, with a triumvirate with him as Lord Warden, the Lion as Lord Protector, and Sanguinius and Regius Imperialis, and also, this time, with Konrad Curze as a violent maniac. The last part not as violent as in the book series, luckily. It goes without saying that even with a loyal Konrad Curze, Guilliman wouldn't trust him much. If Imperium Secundus had gone on for long enough, he'd probably have ended up in some kind of political position eventually. But before long, news reached Ultramar that Terra still stood, and the Emperor yet lived. All 4 legions make their way back to the war, just like in the true timeline, only with one minor deviation. In the true timeline, the Blood Angels eventually made their way to Terra ahead of the Ultramarines, and they still do, only now their numbers are bolstered by ships bearing the crest of Nostramo. They arrived just in time too, because this event also marks the beginning of most of the siege carries on like we're used to. A few tens of thousands more Astartes isn't going to noticeably shift the tide of war in either direction, but the constant jump-pack assaults launched on the traitor lines do lead to a noteworthy delay in bringing up the siege towers that breach the outer walls, leading to the Dark Mechanicum and other auxiliary traitor forces taking significantly higher casualties ahead of the full assault on the walls. But this war was never about conserving the lives of Horus's mortal followers. It was about killing an Imperium. So the end and the death of the Emperor is carried out like we're used to. Curze comes along to the vengeful spirit, fights by his father's side, and arrives to Horus's throne room just in time to see his mentor, his best friend, his only friend, strung up on the wall like a slaughtered pig. Something snaps in Curze. As the Emperor and Horus fights, Curze lifts Sanguinius down from the hooks he's impaled on and coddles him in his arms. All that talk about how fate wasn't set in stone, and yet... You knew, didn't you? You knew, and yet you tried to convince me that I could escape my own fate, while you couldn't even escape your own. Was it all lies? Did you tell me all that just so I would behave? I have to get out of here. Curze takes off. He finds his way back to Terra one way or another, and as Horus dies, Terra is fully returned to real space, and Guilliman's massive relief fleet can finally arrive to break the siege.
They're met by a small flotilla of Night Lord's vessels fleeing the system. Gilliman wishes Curze luck, assuming the Night Lords are chasing the traitors down, but this is not the case. The Night Lords do fire on any traitors in range, but they're leaving for their own reasons. Curze has had enough of the brothers and emperors, loyalists and traitors. He's having an extended mental breakdown from seeing Sanguinius dead, and he wants to... No. He needs one thing. And one thing alone. He craves the solitude of complete and utter... The Night Lords return to Nostromo, only to find it shattered. Not by Curze himself, like in the true timeline, but this time by Horus's forces, who committed exterminatus on the world as revenge for Curze staying with the Emperor. This didn't exactly lighten the mood of the already desperate Primarch, and so the little flotilla left the system to find a new home. They eventually find an Imperial world with a small population and settle down. In the following years, most of the Night Lords eventually take off. Almost all who do end up as renegades or even fall to chaos. All the while, no one hears or sees any sign of Curze, who mostly keeps to himself, only leaving his small hut to hunt for food at night. Word is out about Curze's visions, and the rumor on the world is that Curze thinks the Emperor really will send assassins after him now, which is why he picked the most isolated world he could find. Eventually, back on Terra, the Lion is charged by his brothers to set out to find Curze again, to bring him back home and into the fold. After a prolonged search involving the capture, torture, and dismemberment of countless renegades formerly belonging to the Night Lords, the Lion is told of an isolated world far away in the distant Ghoul stars. He goes there and lands at the planet's only spaceport, and eventually, in a small hut on the outskirts of a small settlement, he finds none other than Konrad Curze. The Lion starts almost berating his brother, talking about duty and honor, that Curze can't just stay out on the fringes of the galaxy doing nothing, that their father... Before the Lion can finish his sentence, Curze cuts him off.
Father? That's what this is all about, isn't it? He sent you here. He sent you here to kill me, didn't he?
No, father isn't even...
Yes! He sent you here to kill me, just as I foresaw. Sanguinius told me it needn't come to pass, that it was avoidable, but he was wrong, as he was with everything.
Sanguinius? Brother, this is Matt... Before he could finish speaking, Curze lunges at the Lion, intent on cutting him down to save his own life, still holding on to that faint hope that Sanguinius was right after all. The fight is brief. Curze fights purely out of desperation, a wounded animal backed into a corner. His attacks sloppy and half-hearted, Curze realizes he can't win. The Lion takes no joy in this fight, but ends it the only way he knows. After a regular book play feint, he spins around, the Lion sword quickly cutting horizontally in front of him, and a soft thud is heard as Curze's head falls from his neck and hits the stone floor. The Lion sighs and leaves the hut. Outside, the Dark Angels have rounded up the few dozen remaining Night Lords, who just felt their father die. They throw themselves at the Dark Angels, and while they fight viciously and take several of the Knights of Caliban along with them, they are outnumbered 100 to 1, and the fight lasts for less than a minute. It ends with the last loyal sons of Konrad Curze sharing their poor father's fate. Among the dead is first Captain Jago Sevatarian, better known only as Sevatar, as well as Talos Valkoran, the Soul Hunter. Tragically, in the end, Curze's prophecy was fulfilled. Whether this was inadvertently his own doing, or if such visions actually are set in stone, is up for debate, but the true tragedy here is that even with a good friend and the help and support he so sorely needed, Curze never could reach salvation. It's been several months since I published a video here last, And if you've seen my short-form content, either here on YouTube Shorts, over on Instagram Reels, or TikTok, you'll have noticed that I'm back again. At least, mostly. I can't promise a consistent upload schedule, as a lot is happening in my life these days, but making this type of content is still very fun, and I'll try to keep going. If you do want to support me in my effort to keep making stuff here, hit that like button, subscribe, and let me know in the comments what you would like to see on the channel going forward. A huge thank you for watching through to the end, and I'll see you next time.